I am standing in the Saint Seraphim of Serav woods. We dedicated this part of our land to Saint Seraphim many years ago when there was a question as to whether we would have somebody building a house on this side of our monastery property. And so we really are grateful to Saint Seraphim for enabling us to purchase this land. And so in respect and in showing our gratitude, I built this trail. This trail is the Balaam Trail in the Saint Seraphim Wood. I love forests. I grew up in northern Idaho, and one of my favorite things to do was to take photographs from the sides of mountains looking out over Pend Oreille Lake. Forests have always been important to me. And as I said in a previous talk, whenever I am in the Bay Area at our cathedral, visiting with our Archbishop or being down there for conferences, I always try to come back on 101, and then I take an exit through the Avenue of the Giants to be with my old friends, the redwoods. The thing about a forest, and we've immediately noticed this, and when we have visitors visit our monastery and come to stay here for a day or two, people are always commenting on how well they've slept. There have been studies done that show that the health benefits of taking daily walks in the forest or among the trees in a park, they make a huge difference, and they provide oxygen for us. Whenever I am in the forest, I feel this connection to orthodoxy like no other place in the secular world. And I think that has to do with the fact that the very first time I venerated an icon was the very summer that I drove through the redwoods with some friends for the first time, and I encountered this 2,000-year-old redwood tree that was living when Christ was on this earth. The beautiful thing about being surrounded by a forest on an island is that it's sort of like a dream that I had as a young man. I remember this beautiful little island on Pend Oreille Lake across from Hope. And we would look out there as a family. And I remember even then that I said to my dad, someday I would like to live on an island, and here I am. But the benefit of living on an island surrounded by the Salish Sea and of the Puget Sound is that we have this great barrier between ourselves and the huge populations that live around the Puget Sound region, Seattle and Tacoma to be exact. The thing about a forest for me, that connects the forest to the interior of our Orthodox churches is that, like the forest, where we can come into this forest and get this sense of breathing good air, when we go into an Orthodox temple, we are also in a place that gives us oxygen. Only the oxygen in the temple is of an eternal nature. It's what gives us life. Just like this forest is giving me life as I'm standing here, so the temple gives me life when I enter in. And I pray before the throne of God, and I worship the Holy Trinity in His temple. But think of how many people, the northern Thebaid comes to mind, which was the desert for the Russians, where many monasteries were built and where hermits, even Saint Seraphim of Serav lived as a hermit in a forest for a very long time. There's something about a forest that nurtures you when you allow it to do so. just as happens in the temple. So if you are not a frequent visitor to a forest or a park, I urge you to do so, just as I urge you to be consistent in your church attendance, that you enter into the place where you are receiving the oxygen that comes from our encounter with Christ. May God bless us all, and may our forests nurture every one of us in our health and well-being, just as spiritually we are nourished when we enter into an Orthodox temple and worship before the throne of God. Amen, I say. Amen. Amen.